Hey guys, Negative9 here, how is it going everybody? And every day we are getting closer and closer to the final episode of Living Story Season 3. And I think we can all agree that this should be a pretty mental episode, as we know we have an expansion coming right around the corner. So today I thought it would be fun to talk about some of the things that I personally think will be featured in Episode 6. This video will of course include discussion of the leak, so if you don't want to be spoiled on the location of the next expansion, please do not watch any further. So in episode 5 we discovered that one of the 6 human gods, Balthazar, was masquerading as Lazarus the Dyer to try and absorb Primordus's power. Of course, doing this would doom the planet, so the player character and Timey had to intervene using Omad's machine. The machine put Primordus back into his pre-awakening state, and we can only assume the same for Jormag. However, Balthazar disappeared, and it's very unlikely that he's gone for good. Like I said, this episode could be pretty crazy and cover an endless number of topics. It will probably cover a lot of the Balthazar aftermath and people's reactions to us putting Jormag and Primordus back to sleep. I'm pretty sure there will be plenty of interesting conversations to be had, but one of the biggest points of speculation is the location of the next episode itself. Where is our new map going to be? Because we know the next expansion will be taking place in Alona, a lot of people have been speculating that we could get a map to the south of Ebenhawk, or a zone directly connected to the expansion area, very similar to how the Silver Wastes worked. Others think we could be going back north or to somewhere in the Shiver Peaks to find Bram and confirm that Jormag has indeed become dormant once more. And I do think the Shiver Peaks are the more likely of the two, because why would we just hope that Timey's plan worked on both Elder Dragons? I think it's important that we confirm Jormag still isn't a threat. And of course it would be cool to see the northern Shiver Peaks again, and honestly, I do think it's more likely that Jormag is in the far north, but that doesn't mean we'll find some reason to go further south. If we do go to the northern Shiver Peaks, we could see a map next to Frostgorge Sound and the Snowdon Drifts, or even a map around the Eye of the North, which I think would be really cool. Moving on to the actual content of the episode, I think that Living World Season 3 Episode 6 will be Rytlock's episode. This is just speculation of course, but I think it could finally be time for Rytlock to tell us of his journey into the mists. Back in Living World Season 2, Rytlock attempted to reverse the Fofar's curse by performing a cleansing ritual. However, the ritual didn't work as intended, and his legendary sword Sahothan was sucked up into the mists. Rytlock jumped in after it, and from that point we didn't hear from Rytlock until the expansion. Rytlock made his return in the first episode of Heart of Thorns, sporting a blindfold and wielding a very strange new power. Now, as I speculated about a year ago on my channel, I believe that while in the mists, Rytlock ascended. And if you're unfamiliar with Ascension in the first game, Ascension is described as a state of communion with the old gods. Among other benefits, those who succeed in attaining it are able to travel through the mists, and with the right help can unlock hidden reserves of power, in addition to being masters of their primary chosen heroic profession. And I don't know about you, but to me this sounds a lot like Rytlock. His return in Heart of Thorns proved that he could travel through the mists, and I also think it's fair to say that he unlocked a hidden reserve of power, given that he left us as a warrior and returned as a revenant. Additionally, I think we can assume he is the master of his profession, as he is the first, and as far as I know, the only revenant in the canon lore. Finally, if Rytlock truly did ascend, this would mean that Tribune Rytlock Brimstone has met the human gods. This alone is a fascinating idea, a heathen char waltzing into the mists and standing face to face with the Six themselves. This also gives us some explanation as to Rytlock's blindfold, as staring at the gods in their true form for too long can cause you to go blind. And I know this isn't necessarily the reason for his blindfold, but I kind of like that idea better, so that's what I'm going to go with in this video. And I would imagine that within their realm, the mists themselves, that the gods would not adopt trivial avatars. No, Rytlock saw the Six in their rawest forms, and he lost his sight because of it. But they also granted him power and passage through the mists, something they only do to those they deem worthy. They also allowed him to keep Sahothan, which by the way is a wholly human artifact, an artifact that once belonged to those who dwelt in Ara, the city of the gods. And in the grand scheme of things, the timing of this is all far too coincidental. I believe whatever went on in the mists between Rytlock, Sahothan, and the gods almost certainly has to do with the return of Balthazar to Tyria and the story behind how the gods have abated or shunned Balthazar. Did Rytlock witness the fall of Balthazar? Is he partially responsible for it? Could Rytlock somehow have absorbed Balthazar's power? These are all possibilities at this point. It is also no coincidence that right as Lazarus and eventually Balthazar are reintroduced into the story, we see Rytlock get stripped of his titles and taken away to the Black Citadel. There was no chance for Rytlock to come face to face with Balthazar for a second time. It seems like Rytlock has somehow got himself mixed up in the affairs of the gods, much like Kasmeer in the first game. We also see through the leaks that we're heading straight for the Crystal Desert in Alona in the next expansion, the very place where many civilizations of man have tried to ascend. I can't think of a better way to suddenly turn our attentions toward the Crystal Desert in Alona than by having Rytlock tell us of his trip to the Mists at the end of episode 6. As you can probably tell, I am immensely excited at the prospect of finally hearing what Rytlock has to say, but there are also a couple more, albeit slightly more unrealistic lore bombs that ArenaNet could drop if they wanted to. Two characters that fascinate me because of the mystery surrounding them are Kasmeer Mead and Marjorie Delacroix. In Season 3, Kasmeer was almost non-existent, and when she did show up in Episode 5, and Lazarus finally revealed himself to actually be Balthazar, it had a very strange effect on her. She was beyond shocked to see him, which I guess could be a reasonable reaction to seeing a god, but then she just peaced out and left. I thought that was very strange, and something tells me that Kasmeer knows a lot more than she's letting on, and part of me thinks that has to do with Countess Anise and Queen Jenna, but I'll talk about that in a little bit. Marjorie, on the other hand, has been working very closely with Lazarus for a large portion of Season 3, and that makes me think she could have information to share as well. But of course she is injured, and we go after Balthazar, so we never really get to catch up with her in Episode 5, but I certainly hope we get a chance to speak with her in Episode 6. Balthazar has left us in a very interesting position as well, and I don't think he'll be in Episode 6, but I do think his story is still very relevant. Now, Balthazar was disguised as Lazarus using a mirror crafted by Lissa, and based on the in-game text, it makes it sound like Lissa is very much on Balthazar's side, or that she at least has reasons to be supporting him. This instinctively makes me very suspicious of the well-known mesmers in the story, such as Kasmeer, Queen Jenna, and Countess Anise, three already very mysterious characters, at least two of which are members of the Mesmeric Collective, which are a semi-secret mesmeric order dedicated to the study and discovery of mesmeric magic. If you read the Guild Wars 2 Reddit, you'll have probably read the theory that Countess Anise or Queen Jenna, or even both of them, are in fact aspects of Lissa herself. Lissa, the mesmer god of illusion and duality, has throughout history been known to dwell amongst mortals on several occasions. I don't necessarily expect this to be confirmed or even touched upon in the last episode, but it is always something to keep an eye on. There are so many loose ends and strange coincidences that it's sometimes hard to predict which ones are baseless and which ones do have some legitimate merit. But based on all of that speculation, I think a large portion of the episode will be spent catching up with lots of people like Logan, Bram, Kasmeer, Marjorie, Timmy, Rytlock, and who knows who else, in addition to making a journey to the new zone. And to be honest, I wouldn't mind if they did a lot of exposition and dialogue in this episode, as I think there are a lot of things that need to be clarified and explained to us. But anyways guys, that's about all I have for this video. Really, I could have made this a lot longer, but I tried to only include things that I really think were relevant to the episode. These are of course my guesses, so it is by no means fact in any way that these things will happen in the final episode. I would be happy if part of any one of my predictions came true, to be honest. Be sure to leave your thoughts below on what you think is coming in the final episode of Season 3, and I will see you guys next time.